At the Academy for Offensive Magicians, everyone agrees on one thing. There is no place for healers here, but our prota thinks differently. Will is the best healer there is, and yet he enrolls in this academy. Everyone expects me to fail miserably. One teacher even decides to prove it by organizing a practice battle. The moment the fight starts, the professor uses earth magic to trap Will, but Will easily dodges every attack, increasing his speed with healing magic. The professor almost catches him in a dirt trap, but Will dodges him again. Then he goes on the offensive, shortens the distance, and attacks with his dagger. Of course, the attack does not work. The professor covers himself with an impenetrable earth armor, sure that a weak healer without offensive magic can't touch him. But Will knows how to deal with that. In this world, most magicians limit their power because their bodies cannot withstand their full strength. Exceeding that limit causes the body to fall apart. But if Will removes that limiter, he can unleash massive power at the cost of destroying his own body, and he's absolutely fine with that. After all, he is a healer. Will lunges forward with an overloaded fist. His arms are shattered as he goes straight through the professor's earth armor. The teacher doesn't even have time to react. He is knocked out instantly. So why is there a healer in this academy? Because last time, everyone else was useless, and Will died because of it. This is what happened back then. You'd think being good at a job would earn you the respect you deserve from your superiors, right? Well, that's not the case with our guy. Literally, his superior takes a stab at him for doing an exceptional job. Will is an ordinary young man with an extraordinary healing ability, a unique power that only he possesses in the whole world. He could literally heal even the most horrific wounds as if it were child's play. Did you lose an arm? It's not a big deal. The guy can regenerate it from the stump in seconds. Currently, he is serving alongside the last remaining soldiers at the front, fighting against a demonic army led by demon lords. The same forces responsible for devastating the kingdom of Granville. The soldiers fight tooth and nail, doing their best to repel the demonic forces that have already destroyed the rest of the world. As for our guy, he has no battle experience, so he is tasked with healing the wounded, basically rescuing them from the brink of death. But let's be realistic. These mortals stand no chance against terrifying creatures that have emerged from the depths of hell itself. That's why the soldiers keep coming back with amputated limbs, and our guy continues to diligently heal them. However, over time, soldiers get tired of fighting over and over again, only to be wounded again. They have accepted their cruel reality. They're finished. They'd rather die on the battlefield and get this shit over with. That's exactly the reason why our boy was stabbed by his captain. The captain believes that Will does not understand the pain and horror that soldiers endure every time they are forced to return to the battlefield. In the end, the hopeless soldiers abandon the defensive line, allowing the giant monsters to start devastating the remnants of the kingdom. Will watches helplessly as everyone dies before his very eyes, watching his home fall apart. Looking at that huge dragon, he finally realizes the kind of horror that those soldiers had been living through. It was at that moment that his greatest strength became his greatest regret. If only he had had what it took to fight on the battlefield, he could have ensured the survival of the people around him. With a burning desire to defend his kingdom with his bare hands, the guy grabs a simple pebble from the ground and starts charging at the dragon. Of course, his ridiculous attempt to fight a powerful dragon with a simple stone results in his death. However, unsurprisingly, he wakes up almost 5 years in the past, just before he earned the title of the best healer in the world, a title he later came to hate. Determined not to repeat his past regrets, he decides to enroll in an academy that specializes in offensive rather than healing magic. And his first choice for high school is the Swords Academy, a school dedicated solely to the combat arts. In this world, the arts of healing and the art of using offensive magic cannot coexist, forcing young magicians to opt for a single profession. However, Will decides to break this unwritten rule and achieve what he couldn't in his past life. He plans to use his past knowledge in an effort to cultivate himself in such a way that he knows not only how to heal, but also how to fight for himself. To get things going, You need to enroll in one of the most prestigious academies this world has to offer, the Swartz Academy. It is believed that this academy can turn young talents into first-class magicians who master offensive magic. Not to mention that the most talented battle mage from Will's past life also graduated from this academy. However, there is a problem. Will is a healing wizard, so getting into Swartz won't be easy. Normally, nobles spend a fortune to get their foolish descendants to enroll in this academy. But our boy is currently broke. Even if you start earning a living using your healing skills, you won't be able to save enough before the registration deadline arrives. While she is reflecting on her predicament, her sister enters the room. Seeing her alive makes her eyes fill with tears. Noticing his reaction, she assumes that his stomach must hurt for him to cry like that. He quickly dries his tears and pretends, saying that something simply irritated his eye. Internally, however, he can barely contain the joy of seeing his sister alive. He vows to protect her this time from the catastrophe that consumed her life earlier. And not only her, she will make sure to protect everyone she couldn't save before. Suddenly, his mind lights up with an idea. He seems to have figured out his next step. But before we continue, here's a bit of context about the Federation of Magic Academies. It is an organization that oversees all magic academies in the kingdom, responsible for setting regulations and curricula for all magic education. At the moment, the president of the Federation is also the director of the Swartz Academy. But for some reason, the president has completely stopped paying attention to the Federation. Soon, the reason became apparent. It was for her sick granddaughter, Marie. By the way, the name of this pampering grandfather is Arnold Gold. President of the Federation of Magic Academies and director of the Swartz Academy. The old man promised his little girl that he would find a healing magician capable of putting her out of her misery. However, in our guy's previous life, his granddaughter passed away because the president failed to find a capable magician in time. That's exactly why my guy sneaks right into the president's granddaughter's room. Conveniently, our guy does not even have to appear before the president, who is already present there. The old man already knows about the scholarship student who comes from Ailey. After all, Will is famous throughout the kingdom for the exceptional talent he possesses in healing magic. This is exactly why the president finds it inappropriate for someone of our boy's caliber to be sneaking around like a thief. Internally, Will admits that he's right. Perhaps if it were not for the experience of his past life, he would not have dared to infiltrate someone's personal space. But then again, formalities are a luxury they can't afford at the moment. He had to come in right away because only he can cure her. Of course, the old man knows that nothing is free and wants this promising young man to be clear about his intentions. Will insists that time is of the essence. Your treatment takes precedence over negotiations. Finally, the old man gives him the permission that our guy needs. He sits by the bed ready to cure his illness, but the old man's intense gaze catches his attention. In the soul of our boy, the president is practically broadcasting that one wrong move and our guy is finished. So Will takes a deep breath, ready not to make a mistake, and his healing magic begins. While he is applying this healing magic, he realizes that his mana reserve has been reduced compared to his past life. But what matters most is the perfect execution of the healing magic formulas, which fortunately, remember very clearly. After a while, the granddaughter finally opens her eyes. The first thing she notices is Prince Charming, who rescued her from a situation of life and death. She gets totally nervous and turns the other way out of embarrassment. Meanwhile, the grandfather still cannot believe that his granddaughter has really come out of a comatose state. The girl confirms her return, even claims that she hasn't felt this good in years. The eyes of the pampering grandfather are filled with tears of joy. The worries that had been weighing him down for so long have finally disappeared, and it's all thanks to our guy. A short time later, both men sit in the living room. After expressing his due gratitude, the old man is ready, put to grant any wish that our guy harbors. Will assures her that she will not ask for anything absurd. Their desire is completely within the power of the president. By now, it is common knowledge that there is no one who compares to Will when it comes to healing magic. It is located at the top, with no more room to grow. That's exactly why he wants to explore a different skill set. He wants to enroll in the Swartz Academy. Of course, to the old man this seems absurd. For someone to abandon their natural aptitude for exploring something completely unknown sounds unusual. But since the old man had already made his promise, he's going to keep it. He shakes the young man's hand, promising to keep his end of the bargain. Somewhere in the academy, a seemingly toxic teacher is checking our boy's enrollment profile. He considers the president's actions to be quite bold in signing up a healing mage with no offensive skills in a combat school. Finally, the day of the entrance ceremony arrives, and the new students gather in the assembly hall of the academy. On the days, the president is there to praise and commend his institute. Swartz Academy is a fully residential school specializing in offensive magic with its own unique curriculum. Its vast campus is home to multiple training camps, and things only get better with the state-of-the-art research facilities and a huge library, making it stand out even more. Influential graduates are active even beyond the academy, which makes it possible to receive various forms of support from the kingdom. If I had to sum it up, there is no other institute that offers this kind of environment to study the intricacies of offensive magic. Let's not forget that our guy is just a mere healer enrolling in this academy, something that is unprecedented so far. So it goes without saying that his road ahead will be full of thorns. But my guy is ready to face whatever awaits him, as long as he becomes the offensive magician he wants to be. However, the reality is often far from expectations. The first class after the entrance ceremony takes place, and Will can be seen sweating the fat drop. He is supposed to hit a target with a fire magic spell. Somehow, he manages to activate a fire spell, but it fades away as soon as it appears. And it's not the first time this has happened. To make matters worse, his teacher is a real scumbag who tries to bully our boy, using his weakness as an advantage. Will only be able to attend the class if he manages to hit the dummy. Until he succeeds, he is forced to continue his practice at the training camps on the other side of the school building. Will insists that his teacher at least teach him the basics, or else he will never be able to learn it properly. Moreover, it was clear from the very beginning that this particular teacher has an irrational hatred for our boy. For him, wasting time teaching a healer is not the best investment. Will begs her to at least allow him access to the library so he can learn some of the theory. Once again, the wretch humiliates our boy for being a simple healer, claiming that they have no literature that can be used by his kind. Taking advantage of the situation, a blonde asshole knocks down the healer with cunning magic attacks from behind, forcing Will to fall to the ground. The poor guy didn't even expect the sudden attack, but the bully thinks it's one more reason to take advantage of the healer for being so weak. He brags about the academy's status in the offensive range, so any bland healer like Will can get the hell out for daring to sign up. This is the first time I've seen a teacher ally with the bully against a student. They both humiliate Will like he's the worst scum in their eyes. That night, our boy looks exhausted by the bench. His efforts to learn offensive magic have ended up in the trash so far. I knew it would be a headache simply because of the difference between healing magic and offensive magic. Both extract their own type of energy source. Mana is the power of the mind, the ultimate weapon of a magician, which is activated through formulas. The mana also moves according to the will of the caster. Using that mana for explosions or firepower gives you offensive magic. Healers, on the other hand, possess a quiet mana, but that's where the Swartz Academy comes in. They are the best at forming offensive mages, so there has to be a way for me to refine the dynamic mana. Will firmly believes that he could manipulate his mana in a way that could turn static mana into dynamic mana. The biggest obstacle in his way. She can't even attend classes right now because the shitty teacher won't let her. Will refuses to give up, hoping to find that person who helped him in his previous life. Just for her, her decision to have come to this academy might end up being worth it. Unfortunately, he can't continue blindly, so he thinks of other ways. But suddenly, a familiar voice confronts him about being out until this afternoon. When Will looks at the beautiful appearance of this person, he sees Veronica, an extremely competent warrior who fought by his side. She was one of the highest class offensive magicians he ever met, and in the end, He had to mourn her loss in the tragic war. Luckily, she's alive in this regressive timeline. But before they could even speak, this woman pulls out the very sword that can cut anything in half. This girl looks like a feminine Gojo with the skills of her cradle. The fact that he's pointing his sword at her isn't exactly pleasant, but it turns out he's hunting a student. Suspicious student around campus, which makes her wonder if Will is that same troublesome student. Our guy quickly clarifies that he is not that guy, because if by any chance she attacks him, he is going to need another regression. And falls out of the truck with again. She believes him, which reassures him, and he asks to confirm if she really is Veronica. The woman is offended that he addresses the teachers so casually, which causes her embarrassment and surprise. He knew she was older than he was in his past life, but not that much. It turns out that she is actually a prodigy who skipped courses and was promoted to professor right away, which is not surprising considering his god-level talent. This is the opportunity Will has been waiting for. The shooting star that could help him learn offensive magic at last. Will expresses interest in taking Veronitza's class, knowing that she is his last hope. He asks about the registration procedure, but she immediately rejects him, stating that she does not have any classes started. Since she is a new teacher who was previously promoted from numerous classes, she has no idea how things work here. For this year, Veronitza's current position is to serve as an instructor, assistant to handle certain questions. The plan was to use her young mind to connect with the students closest to her age, which would make her a great support for them. However, what bothers her is that no one dares to approach her for any kind of consultation. Well, our guy knows exactly why. It's because this woman pulls out her murder weapon at the slightest inconvenience. But from her point of view, this is an excellent opportunity to take advantage of Veronica. You don't even have to take her classes, and you can just use her to teach you privately. So he asks her a question, knowing it's his job to answer. Being straightforward right away, this man asks how he should approach learning offensive magic as a healer. From his words, Veronica instantly realizes that he is not an ordinary student, having felt the strange composition of his mana flow. Now remember that this guy is the famous rookie who joined the Swartz Academy. In all his years, he even admits to never having seen a normal healer trying to learn offensive magic. The great thing about Swartz is that the Academy offers a method to cultivate something called dynamic mana. It's a foundation that our guy thinks will serve as the perfect start for him. And when Veronica confirms his existence, Will gets very excited, thinking that there is an opportunity, a little problem. This woman bluntly tells him that his dumbass will not be able to learn offensive magic, even with that method. This revelation really amazes our guy, especially when Veronica explains that he already has too much static mana. This means that even if you cultivate dynamic mana from scratch, most of it will be converted and dissolved into static mana anyway. And if he were to try to cultivate dynamic mana using some other method, the mixture of the two mana qualities will make it impossible for him to use any kind of offensive magic. The reality seems bleak. The guy switched academies only to realize that there is literally no way for a normal healer to learn offensive magic. Will is starting to regret not getting an instruction manual when the Kun-truck made him go back in time. Well, he doesn't want to give up, even if it means becoming the Einstein of his generation to invent a new method. Thanking the assistant professor, he is about to leave, when suddenly Veronica stops him to finish his argument. She continues from earlier, stating that while it is true that healers cannot use offensive magic, there is one caveat that could allow a healer to become an offensive magician. The girl completely confused him, because even our guy can't understand that logic. Veronica proves her point by revealing her specially carved iron sword, a weapon that can slash and defeat enemies. Then he talks about the bench next to them, which is made of wood, capable of being used by sitting on it. In other words, Professor Smoothbrain is saying that water gets wet and soil is made of soil. But here's the twist. She picks up the bench and explains that even if she used it to beat someone up, it would still be a weapon. Oddly enough, Will starts to wonder how this muscular mommy can lift such a heavy bench with those noodle arms. Anyway, Veronitza's approach is that even if something is made for a different purpose, one can use it however one wants. To personalize her argument, She demonstrates it with her hand and proceeds to pat him on the face, making this man blush. This, the wet dream for most men, until he ends up sapping her in the face, explaining how he used his hand for two purposes just now. He ends up hitting it too hard, but anyway, the point remains the same. The same, but with a different use. Will's eyes finally open. He begins to wonder if he can use his healing magic as an attack. All this time, I hadn't even considered the idea. The main reason why both factions of mages are at odds is because of the differences that lie in their own mana forms. But in Veronitsa's eyes, this guy is different. She thinks that she is already taking a big step by enrolling in an offensive magic academy, and even her mana indicates that she is not purely a healer. This is an observation that not even Will himself had noticed, which makes him wonder if it is one of the abilities that the truck gave him with. Pointing his sword at his neck, he orders him to become aware and ignite the aggressive passion inside his soul. If he does that, he will become unstoppable and annihilate anyone who gets in his way. The next day, our boy reflects on yesterday's conversation with his teacher. He used many different examples to prove his point, and what really surprises him is because he doesn't seem to have any kind of scrutiny against normal healers. Then there's the fact that he was able to come up with a theory on the spot that made sense. Will is starting to think that she is using the same method herself, but her train of thought is interrupted by an instructor who rudely calls him a healer. Today's class is special, as there will be a lot of one-on-one battles. He is able to participate together with others. Of course, whether he can use offensive magic or not is his own problem. The bastard teacher has also finalized the pairings. And without a doubt, this man paired our guy against Ulpus, the blonde asshole from the other day. Our boy is not looking forward to this fight against Ulpus, because the boy is from a famous noble academy and has all the backing. He's a rich kid, but more than that, he's actually a powerful offensive wizard. Ulpus already assumes the victory and teases our guy, wondering if he will run back to mommy after being destroyed. Our guy is doing his best not to be provoked by this asshole. Even though he's from the future and he knows he's facing a kid, it's still pissing him off. The good thing is that Will wants to test Veronitsa's theory in action, so he shows interest in the fight. He asks for the teacher's attention and refuses to give up. Instead, our guy has a proposal, saying that he has no talent for offensive magic, which would be a waste of time for this fight. So he ups the ante and directly declares that he will leave Swartz Academy if he loses this match. The teacher is delighted to hear those words, but the other side of the coin is that if our guy wins, he will be allowed to take normal classes. It's an insulting proposal, but Ulpus is so arrogant that he breaks down laughing, saying how ridiculous the idea of a victory really is. He even thinks that Will is delirious on his island of Lulu with no chance of winning. The instructor is fed up with them and accepts the proposal, ordering both contestants to take positions. He signals for the start of the combat, which begins with Ulpus quietly activating the offensive magic. Manifest a bunch of radiant daggers. This is his specialty, called knife creation magic. Basically, the guy is the Gilgamesh from AliExpress with micropenis swords as a weapon. Throwing all those daggers in Will's direction, he screams that there's no way a shitty healer can defend himself. But our guy is there doing the Buddha pose and everything, ready to activate his domain expansion. The moment he activates his technique, he is able to match the speed of the daggers and dodge them all concisely. This is a technique called life manipulation, something that Will uses to manipulate the very essence of the living creatures near him, increasing his HP to the absolute limit. But that's not all. I could also use it as an attack from this same approach. Ulpus panics and calls it a fucking fluke, but our guy is carrying his aura in the same pose. Catch the AliExpress Gilgamesh dagger before cutting all the others in the style of Cyru and Milla. The weapons fail and haven't done any damage so far, but our guy is just getting started, and with a single dagger, he intends to finish this fight. Viewers can't comprehend what just happened. A healer using an offensive attack just doesn't fit in their head. Actually, Will has been using healing magic as an attack, and never used offensive magic. Ulpus is in trouble, and says he was holding back the whole time. Apparently, The guy can increase the number of knives at his disposal, as if that's going to make any difference. He rains the golden projectiles on the healer in anger, but our guy casually begins to cut each and every dagger. At the end of their defense, they are all mangled on the ground. Alpus still thinks he's the big deal, so he increases the size of his micropenis dagger. And damn, that angle looks a little fishy if you ask me. Anyway, Will understands that fighting Alpus is a hassle because of his talent and understanding of magic. To increase the complexity and firepower, Alpus makes his dagger spin, basically launching a missile in the direction of our guy. The guy borrowed the fire arrow technique from his crib, just so Will would block that shit out too. Alpus can't steal any more techniques from other series, and he just roars with frustration. Meanwhile, our guy thinks that he should gradually increase his strength. The fierce projectile is deflected easily, to Alpus' surprise. Before he can do anything else, Will teleports behind him, using Goku's teleportation, promising to cure him after this. He then goes straight for the kill, only for the instructor to intrude and throw a huge wall of dirt between the two. The instructor thinks the match is over and tells both of them to step aside for the next couple. The defeat is truly humiliating for the conceited noble, but Will is happy to be able to attend normal classes from now on, much to the frustration of this useless instructor. Having finished here, he shoots out, reflecting on his experience in the fight. Finally, she has created her own version of offensive magic, and it was powerful enough to beat an excellent magician. All thanks to Veronitz's guidance. As for the loser asshole, he is helped by the instructor. Alpus asks his teacher not to inform his father about this combat. They're both like Reddit haters who just can't accept a defeat. In the next scene, we find Will in the classroom. You can take classes here and refine your understanding of attack magic. The instructor enters the room and takes a look at Will before starting the class. So far, his classes have been basic. Basically, a single tutor teacher takes care of all the classes. Will is more intrigued by the magic tool making class, remembering a similar concept at the Healing Academy. Today's lesson is about creating ice bombs. The instructor will hand out materials for students to assemble and process. Will remembers that in his previous life, he never made weapons, only recovery items. But at the Offensive Academy, he is expected to forge weapons for combat. The mana used for this purpose will obviously be dynamic mana, but when it comes to creation, the nature of the mana doesn't matter much at all. That's why Will won't have any problems, even with his static mana surplus, and when he takes a look at the materials, he finds ice golem shards and powdered flame branches. Following the instructions, he mixes the fragment, but suddenly experiences a rapid change. Will ends up throwing the ice fragment through body enhancement, causing that little fragment to detonate and explode, leaving behind ice spikes. Our boy is quite impressed, but his little stunt here is a total disrespect to his class. The instructor scolds him and directly says that he will deduct points from Will's grade. The rest of the thugs are laughing, Alpus especially, which indicates that he is conspiring with the professor. Will's next class on magical creatures is just around the corner. He is given a cute salamander, while the instructor emphasizes to the low-level students to listen carefully. Our guy is a little uncomfortable with the short distance to a magical creature. This little killing machine fires a fire cannon, causing Will to deflect it. Actually, that's just something our guy imagined in his head, even attracting the attention of the instructor, who takes away his trusty pot. Things are not looking good, and Will is really starting to understand what it is. It's happening. The instructor allows him to participate in the classes, but actually tortures him in each of them. This means that he will not be able to learn, so he has to do something about his situation again. Watching him from afar, there is a peculiar student who seems to understand the double rechero that is here. The harassment continued endlessly. Will had to protect himself not only from the students, but also from the ridiculous questions of the instructor outside the program. Her stitches were crushed, and even after classes, she found piles of garbage lying in her room. When he tried to confront the supervisor about the problem, the supervisor punished him further by taking away his dining privileges. The guy is being slaughtered all over the place. He collapses in his room, realizing that this academy is full of hackers. Just when he had taken a positive step, now he has to face a lot of challenges to overcome again. Will understands that his current rate of progress is working wonders for him, and he doesn't want to be bothered by these bullies. The best thing is that he fought one of them and really won the fight. Therefore, he has the absolute proof that he can become the attack magician he always dreamed of being, by focusing on the possible. Positive. Will remembers getting his textbook so he could review the homework and study properly. The next day arrives and, to his utter surprise, there is no teacher or soul in sight. The instructor usually arrives at this time, but there is only one student near him. It's almost as if the news of the sudden schedule change has not been made public for certain students. Annoyed, Will gets up to strike up a conversation with the girl. He approaches her, startling her with his approach. Our guy just wants to know if the classes changed overnight, and debt is definitely something related to that. The instructor hates certain students, and she's on that list too, so they're both toast. She thinks it's a good idea for two bullied loners to get along, and Will can sense her fear. So he offers her a cheerful hand, offering to be her friend. The girl is stunned, and bows her head with absolute respect for him. She introduces herself as Araka Glan, the first friend Will has made at the new academy. She thinks it's totally normal that she doesn't have anyone by her side, considering that she joined classes late and that he's a healer. Erica points out that people always talk about how pathetically weak healers are, which surprises Will. She herself is not one to brag about friends, despite being an offensive magician. Observing his personality, Will understands that fierce discrimination against healers seems to be a culture of the Swartz Academy. It is true that offensive magicians fight at the front, so they have every reason to despise the healers who stay behind. Even in his previous life, Will consecrated himself as a famous healer for the kingdom. I had credibility back then, but here at the attacking academy, things are different. Fronts. Will is going to be eaten up by the academy's discrimination if he doesn't fight it. Erica asks him about his intention to come to the offensive academy. Ordering his thoughts, Will replies that he refuses to accept his reality as a born healer and intends to join the front. Her reason moves her, but Will clarifies that he has his personal reasons that back him up. As for Erica's intentions, apparently, she belongs to a small noble family from the countryside. With no male children born into their family, the parents thought their lineage would end, taking matters into their own hands. She thought that becoming a powerful attack mage could help her become the head of the family just because of her status. It's an understandable goal in Will's eyes, but Erica's problem is that she doesn't have an iota of talent for magic. She also has no friends and is also bullied in class. Luckily, she is happy to have made a friend in our guy, calling him a mediocre who will comfort her even when her grades are low. The guy is being trashed all over, but she's just kidding. Anyway, he reminds her that Erica's expectations will be fulfilled very soon. Without explaining much more, Will takes her to another classroom where the actual class is being taught. The two find their way to the actual class, only for the predictable instructor to deem them tardy. Will apologizes for not knowing about the sudden change of class schedule, but this idiot is an intransigent and does not forgive them. To punish Will, he decides to throw him another question. This is bad news. Erica already knows that our boy has not attended most of the previous classes, which means that he would not know anything. Looking at the blackboard, Will analyzes the problem in his head, while his teacher emphasizes that points will be deducted, and does not give the correct answer. Alpus further ridicules Will, knowing that he is on the verge of failing. But our guy is deeply focused, so he takes the chalk and starts scribbling intensely. Every word captures the attention of the class. Even Alpus thinks that this is just an attempt to show off. Actually, Will deciphers the correct settings, illuminating the magic circle on the blackboard. He exceeded everyone's expectations, leaving the entire room silent, including his shitty instructor. The professor is forced to admit that it is the correct answer, surprising Alpus and even Erica. There's no way the new kid managed to figure out the answer even after missing all his classes. Right after that annoying class, Erica immediately wanted to know how she managed to solve that question. Will explains that it was actually quite easy to solve, since he learned it from the textbook. I had already read the textbook, so I knew what to expect. What surprises her the most is that this man devoured the entire book in one fucking night. Will only read it for the first time, and ended up devouring the book, hailing it as one of the best books about magic. Offensive, fundamental and advanced applications were mentioned. Everything was covered in intense detail. He could study everything on his own, but without having some form of magical understanding. Reading the text was an arduous task. The good thing about Will is that he was always good at theoretical studies, so he was able to get by without much difficulty. He learned all about offensive magic in one night, reading it as if it were a fiction novel. While he is having fun, Erica is here scared. The book he digested is the coconut of his academy, something that cannot be translated without the teacher's guidance. She's starting to regret her initial assumption of calling him a failure, and realizes that she's the only one at the bottom. The girl does not want him to abandon her in the lower ranks, while our guy assures her that he will teach her anything she has problems with. After all, they are best friends of the same kind. Erica smiles, feeling happy to receive his help. The reality is that our boy came to school for his goals, not to become a little friend with the power of friendship. But since he's on his own, he'll need Erica. So he tells her about a favor he needs her to do. The next class is General Offensive Magic, one that he has never been able to try. And the main reason he was never able to access the other classes. Erica thinks she should be able to do it easily now that she defeated Ulpus, but the reality is different. Actually, Will can't use General Offensive Magic like everyone else, but you have an excellent idea. The plan requires Erica's help for him to succeed. In the next scene, the students meet again at the training camps. When it comes to offensive magic, there are two branches, general and unique magic. General magic refers to spell with properly formulated enchantments, which makes it easily accessible to everyone through formulas. In contrast to its general use, the unique magic comes engraved from inside a user, such as the special knife-making magic of Ulpus. The Academy's curriculum includes classes for both types of offensive magic for students to perfect themselves. Of course, unique magic does not lead to a correct answer. So for someone like our guy, this is actually the easiest ticket to attend such classes and win. Unfortunately, he is stuck when it comes to learning general offensive magic, and your teacher knows it very well. Taking full advantage of the healer, the instructor praises him for his theoretical skills and wonders how he will fare in the practices. After all, Will is supposed to fail this class if he can't even use basic magic. The instructor emphasizes that the task is no different from all previous attempts with the aim of shooting at the target. Once again, he demeans Will by calling it an extremely basic task, which means that if he fails to do something so fundamental to the academy, he will not be able to graduate. Sorting out his thoughts, the instructor recalls how the boy applied healing magic in offensive maneuvers, and how healing magic improves the overall statistics of the body. But it's different here because Will can't use something like offensive magic. He just wants this guy to fuck off and drop his class, but our guy is not going anywhere and smiles at the situation. The instructor is freaking out when he sees Will's hand engulfed in flames. There's simply no reason in the world why this guy would be able to cast such magic, but don't be fooled. Actually, this is just a cunning tactic that our protagonist is using. Her entire strategy depends on Erica creating the fireball, using her version of general offensive magic. He then deployed the fireball inside the salamander's tail. Next, Will carefully uses self-healing to fan the flames, hiding them in his hand. Basically, he's doing what Gojo Satoru does with his reverse curse technique to keep the unlimited. It is infinite healing. But even then, Erica doubted her method, wondering what kind of man she was dealing with, not knowing that he was the greatest healer of mankind at one time. Anyway, he stopped the healing magic right after opening the hand, making it look like he had manifested a fireball from the palm of his hands. Now comes the easy part. He simply shoots it towards the target, hitting it on target. The instructor, the guy is shaking like a leaf. Your student has humiliated you once again. The illusion is so good that he is totally convinced that will cast offensive magic. This earns her an immediate pass mark, earning Erica's applause and the total confusion of the spectators. Most of all, Alpus is pissed off. After class, he confronts the teacher to ask for an answer. Neither of us has any idea what's going on. There is no logical way that Will has learned general offensive magic. Alpus' ego is hurting from the defeat he suffered, and now this healer is taking things too far. The guy is willing to go to the point of complaining to his father so that he annihilates the class. Even the professor is stunned by his forcefulness, while the proud noble walks away, ordering the instructor to do whatever it takes to exterminate the healer of his class. The imbecile professor is now in a bind because breaking the rules carries the risk of being found out. Unfortunately, he also spent a lot of time to get his job at the academy, so he can't lose it now. Weighing the risks, the instructor decides that it is better for him to take a chance and get rid of the healer, who is trying to leave his mark on his academy. The guy has a generational falling out with a 15-year-old student and finally decides to take matters into his own hands. After the classes, at the training camp, the instructor ends up summoning Will alone. The guy threatens our guy, but Will takes it as a compliment, too obtuse to realize the situation he is in. The instructor tells him that he wants to lower the fumes to the boy, especially after he skipped a lot of classes when he arrived at the academy. It's not even our guy's fault, because this idiot teacher is the one who refused to let him attend those classes. From the very beginning, Will replies that he has already reviewed the material with his friends and studying on his own, so there is nothing to worry about. But this teacher is being tyrannical in his approach and simply does not care, believing that this new lesson is necessary for Will. The content is decided by him as an instructor, so here they will participate in a full-fledged practice battle. Will finds it quite suspicious to have to fight a teacher for no reason, and the instructor knows that it's unfair. So it gives the kid an advantage. If Will manages to land a single blow, he will be considered the victor of this mini-exam. With this kind of advantage, the instructor hopes that the guy will not back down and take the fight seriously. Of course, this clown never considered the idea of losing. That's how confident he is in his abilities. As for our guy, he is lost in his thoughts, trying to understand the situation. The boy accepts the conditions of the duel, much to the teacher's satisfaction. The fight starts immediately with the instructor using an earth spell from the ground. Luckily, Will knows a little about his teacher's fighting style. He knows that this guy specializes in earth magic, so he dodges the first blow quickly. But that same blow gets more fucked up and forces him to dodge again. Will is being pounded by numerous punches, but he dodges them properly. The professor teases him for dodging nonstop, but Will's current problem is dealing with annoying earth magic, which can be used nonstop. Then there's the fact that his attack has a hell of a range, which makes him completely different from Alpus. At the same time, the guy is not finished yet and finds himself activating the Ultra Instinct with every blow. Willa cuts the distance and throws herself towards her teacher, who activates more of his earth magic, creating a wall on each side before slamming it shut, making a sandwich with the guy. This move seems like the ultimate doom, until the guy sees his student descend from the sky with a dagger in his hand. It's the only chance he has, so Will strikes the blow with the dagger, crushing his teacher's head. Unfortunately, this man had created a durable armor that blocked the blow. The student forcibly avoids the instructor's next attack, creating distance again. This little snake calls his student pathetic and reveals his all-powerful iron armor. Even Will thinks that name is ridiculously cheesy, while his teacher mocks him for using an imitation of general offensive magic. He belittles him, scolds him, and despises the student's confidence for even considering the idea of becoming an attack magician. However, the humble student confidently reminds the instructor that healing magic allowed him to study the human body in immense detail. In this way, he was able to understand that most humans contained their strength so as not to kill him. Their own bodies cannot withstand their full strength, and exceeding that limit will cause their bodies to deteriorate. The instructor takes it as an insult, because Will is trying to lecture him with airs of superiority. But the guy's point is actually simple. If someone can remove the limiter from the human body, he can release a huge power at the cost of destroying his body. But the good thing for Will is that he's a healer, so he's about to do a Midorilla Izuku. He doesn't mind that his arms end up getting mangled in the process. The boy's determination leaves the instructor stunned as he calmly, like a Chad, approaches his teacher, who still thinks that his cheesy armor will have no effect. Deku prepares his tile smash. Oh shit. Wait a minute. Wrong story again. His teacher screams as Will annihilates his armor with his fist. The guy not only breaks the armor, he leaves his face more bruised than Jake Paul in his fight against Anthony Joshua. Will reminds him of the beloved instructor who does not decide the fate of a student and feels warmth as he remembers Veronitsa's guidance again. She is the only reason that helped him unlock such an overwhelming force of healing magic that he already possesses. Will knows that he can become much stronger, but while he is lost in his thoughts, the instructor sneaks up on him and attacks him with another column of dirt. Luckily, he is able to dodge it, but it is not enough to calm this man's boiling anger. Will did not expect to be surprised by that attack, especially when he had already fulfilled the condition of the test. The instructor blurts out more bullshit, claiming that there were no witnesses to confirm such a thing, which means that technically a healing midge didn't even hit him. He refuses to acknowledge his defeat at the hands of an annoying healer and casts more earth spells against our guy. Will is starting to get tired of the shitty I am the rules attitude to Kato that Kaba of this man, but thanks to the fact that he has already removed the limiters, he can launch himself at rocket speeds and pass it again at full speed. The instructor couldn't even process Will's sudden advance as the boy carried his heavy fist, ready to demolish it for the second time. Not even his cheesy armor will manifest in time to save him from this forehand, but then the punch stops. Just before sinking his face, the punch stopped. It is as if the flow of time itself no longer exists. Will's punch shatters his face, humiliating the instructor as he processes the intense pain. This embarrassing slow punch is worse than suffering the last attack. This time he can neither run away nor scream to save his life. The scene is really hilarious because this one punch takes up, like, 50 vignettes. Finally, Will exerts real strength and sends this man flying, causing him to crash to the ground. All this time, the healer had been using another one of his healer tricks. He welcomes the instructor back to reality, explaining how he only spent a moment in the real world. But don't worry, he's not like his teacher who doesn't explain shit and understands properly part of what happened. First, when Will connected his punch, he activated an illusion enhancement spell. This spell is supposed to heal people with weakened senses like sight, but recently, our guy has been using it in combat to increase his speed and reaction time. Essentially, you can activate it against an opponent, hyperstimulating their senses, making them believe that 1 second is actually 100 seconds. This makes the attack seem much more painful, as it is brutal and tortuous. Finally, Will gives his teacher a nice smile and asks one last question, asking if he can pass the class yet. Before the stretched-out instructor even responds, the guy grabs his shoulder, threateningly reminding him that he is going to erase every last iota of discrimination that the professor has towards the healer. The harmless healer himself looks like a demon king right now, and emphasizes that his only goal is to enjoy his classes. Which means that if this guy or his students interrupt him again, things will go very badly for him. Will concludes his proposal with a bright smile, ending their meeting. That night, the instructor is seen pacing back and forth in a panic, wondering what kind of monster he encountered. I used to believe that every healing mage was weak as fuck, and submissive to the orders of top-line mages, but this guy is different. He has top-notch combat skills and a homicidal killing intent. Coincidentally, he meets the little blonde boy who is curious to know the result of the training session. Ulpu laughs covertly, believing that it ended with the downfall of our boy, but then he is silenced like a dog. The instructor is fed up with daddy's boy's nonsense and urges the boyfriend, "Don't mess with Will. It's for the good of all of them, and it was their biggest mistake to assume that Will was just some fucking healing wizard." Alpi is surprised by the advice and takes the threat out of her father again, but this time, the instructor is not afraid. He basically tells the little blonde kid to go complain to his daddy all he wants, because actually, if Alpus had all that influence, he could have easily eliminated the healer by now. The Omen family does not move at Alpus' orders, but it is absolutely certain that if they keep messing with the new guy, he will destroy them forever. Alpi is left pissed off, unable to believe that the situation has degraded in this direction. After that phenomenal beating, a few days passed. The class has just finished. Will is calm because he can sense that the noble is cautious around him now. He doesn't make any sneaky moves or make any comments anymore. This way, our guy can finally focus on his classes, but he is not satisfied with his current situation. At the moment, their ultimate goal is to reverse the reality of the destruction of humanity in the future. The only way to avoid such a dark fate is to become stronger. Of course, his healing magic is helping him with body enhancement, but right now, he has pigeonholed himself only into basic strength attacks. Sensory enhancement is also good for illusions, but it's nothing compared to the versatile fighting style of offensive magic. Will understands that he needs to create a completely new fighting style to get up to speed. He explains the same thought process to the assistant professor Veronica, looking for her guidance again. Will's approach needs refinement, but Veronica has something else to say first. He hesitates to listen to what she is going to say, but actually ends up congratulating him for everything he's done so far. Thanks to their contributions, teachers have not stopped talking about the healer. A healing magician is at the level of the best classes in the academy, and is not something to be taken lightly. Well, some other teachers seem to hate their progress too, which makes sense. Interestingly, Veronica has not revealed to anyone that she is the reason behind her progress. She also didn't get a chance to mention it among the teachers, because the others just ignore her for being special even in their ranks. Our boy is relieved because then he won't get into trouble. It was her advice that got him this far, and he didn't want her to get in trouble for that. The teacher doesn't mind, and admits that she is actually grateful to him. As he said before, healing magicians never try to bring their theories to reality. He pulls out his sword again. Strangely, he really likes to do that, and challenges our guy to a duel. Will clearly did not anticipate this move by Veronica, but she has a genuine curiosity to see what level he is at. It is the safest way to help him become stronger, but our guy is not prepared at all and panics like crazy. The swordswoman emphasizes that the enemy will not wait, and throws herself from her place. He appears thunderously right in front of him, to knock him down with a slash, something that Will is able to deflect at the last second. He can barely keep his gun in the face of her heavy attacks, and she continues to overwhelm him with a rage. Despite using all his power-ups and his reaction speed, he can't even keep up with him. The thing about Veronica is that she is more than fast. This woman is the incarnate Ray. His sword moves elegantly from one blow to another, which means that in a battle of resistance, it will be Will who breaks first. Enduring the hard knocks, Will understands that he only has one chance to impress her with his limit-breaking speed. In this way, he will take her by surprise. Infusing his energy into his heel, our boy strides forward with a thunderous ferocity all his own. The teacher did not expect this maneuver, just as he predicted. And just as the blade is about to stab her in the face, she reacts at point-blank range, and strikes back by literally smashing her weapon. The fight is over, and even with Will's best effort, he's no match for Ellie's warrior skill. Veronica shows her enthusiasm. I didn't think he could play it that way. What he used there was a magic sword to counteract it. All this time, he thought he was a healing magician who could use offensive maneuvers, but this is different. The boy's current fighting skills place him near the top of the leaderboard, but Will finds no satisfaction in his progress, as always. She supports her ambition and determination to become stronger, and understands that improvement is not her ultimate goal. Will admits that he is trying to remove the limiter from his body, but that will not be enough, as proved today in his fight. The teacher makes another analogy, stating that the purpose of a sword goes beyond casually brandishing it. She can lunge and be thrown, and healing magic should have applications like that as well. Unfortunately, Quill has been thinking of similar ideas, but he can't think of anything. The beautiful swordswoman explains that her deficiency is real combat experience. He lacks the intuition to formulate what it means to struggle. In Veronitsa's opinion, experience trumps knowledge when applied correctly. Even in their current battle, Will noticed something she wore. Understanding her advice, Will asks if he should do more practice battles against the teacher. Veronica likes the idea, but recommends that she take part in a monster subjugation training mission. The boy is puzzled. Finally, you will have an experience close to a life-or-death combat situation. In fact, he participated in the same competition between the three academies of Swartz, Alec, and Silburn. The three academies boast offensive, defensive, and swordsman styles. Your students are supposed to execute subjugation requests. At the Alec Academy, the guy did not participate in the mission itself, but this time, he has the opportunity to eliminate nightmarish monsters and gain experience against the coming destruction. Will arms himself with courage for his first subjugation mission. Veronica watches him with interest, reminding him of the conditions of participation. The boy must prove his ability in the selection exam, and there is a rumor of a prodigy among the freshmen. Will's new goal is to get the first position in the selection process against his classmates. Ask for the details of the selection exam. The simple criterion is that the candidates will fight each other. There are usually 100 volunteers who show their skills, selecting the best of the best. Even our boy is starting to get fed up with the school's constant emphasis on fighting. At the Alec Healing Academy, a few volunteers volunteered to join, which meant that anyone could participate in the mission. But this is a different format at the Swartz Academy, which boasts a selection process. Will reminisces about the warm memories at the Healing Academy, wondering how his former teacher is doing right now. Veronica talks again about the prodigious student with a skill level that far exceeds that of some instructors. This means that Will won't get the top spot easily, which makes him wonder if the assistant professor has personally met this student. Unfortunately, she has never had the opportunity to meet this guy because she likes to avoid teachers, acting like she is much better than them. He doesn't even come to ask her questions, but that's apart from the fact that she's intimidating. Anyway, Veronica promises Will that she will help him with his exam training. Something that cheers him up because she is the only chance he has to improve. We jumped to the day of the selection exam. Will enters the arena, noting that time has passed quickly since then. He feels more confident than ever, having finished all his preparations. As he mingles with the people, a certain voice calls him by name. He is the president of the Alliance of Magic Academies, Arneum. The director is happy to report that his granddaughter has been recovering steadily since he cured her. The president even apologizes for not taking care of the boy, even after he saved his granddaughter's life. Will explains that although he struggled with the challenges of the academy at first, he has now fully integrated without any problems. In fact, he is determined to get the first place in the selection exam, a noble goal that impresses the president. Interrupting their conversation, the meet arrives. An instructor who trashes Will's words by calling them a joke. He thinks this little guy is underestimating his class a lot. And by the way, Bode is also the supervisor of the field training for the event. Interestingly, Will met this guy in his previous life. Bode was called the Violet Lightning, known for his incredible results as a hero in the Great War. Unfortunately, these two never got along, and even now, the same thing is happening. The melancholic and macho magician intimidates the healer by emphasizing how the world is full of fighting geniuses. Training is just a pebble in comparison. He talks shit to Will openly to his face, declaring that the guy has no chance of winning as a healer. The boy does not respond, while the president recommends that they resolve their argument during the exam, not before. The instructor insists that he is just educating the brat and stresses that the real winner of this exam will be Sirius of his class. This young man is basically a character copied and pasted from Genshin Impact. Sirius Bluner is the prodigy that everyone hails with high expectations. And also the very man that our guy is destined to face for the first place in the selection examination. The competition is fierce, and the president is excited to see them staring at each other. Without wasting any time, the candidates enter the contestants' arena surrounded by a cheering crowd, in search of an epic match. Will and Erica are in the second row, from the front, and the healer expresses his surprise at seeing her participation. Unfortunately, you have to participate, or you will lose your assignment privileges at the academy. Even Ulpus is watching our guy from afar, while the president officially congratulates the candidates for getting this far, and hopes that the best magicians will win. The first round will be a preliminary round, one that will eliminate most of the candidates, leaving only the best ones for proper selection. This means that everyone is going to fight each other at the same time, 100 students against each other. The space is too small for their fight, but there is no problem because the president uses his personal domain expansion to launch them into a completely different dimension. The students can't even imagine where they have been transported to as the old man stands on the edge of space itself, scattering them to different places. Will is transported to a forest just behind the academy. With all the students transported, the principal announces that they have all been placed in random locations. The goal is to cooperate wisely and avoid overwhelming opponents. All starting positions are based on luck. Will is here admiring the president's amazing teleportation skill because this old pussy just teleported them all at the same time. This is how the field training exam begins. First things first, our guy jumps on a branch before activating the presence concealment spell. In this way, he will hide his presence and move stealthily, playing it safe near other contestants. When he looks back, he actually finds 3 students facing each other. One of them uses a powerful earth golem, which could pass for a Pokemon, to be honest, while the other girl has a huge fairy hammer. Both are so busy confronting each other that they forget about the third attacker, a woman who freezes them in place. Will is impressed to see the variety of skills other attack mages possess and believes there is a lot he can learn from them, beyond just wanting the first one. He likes what he has just seen and intends to adapt it to his own skill set. The fight is over, and the last one standing is the guy with the golem. They're celebrating for winning an epic fight. Meanwhile, our guy shows up and plays a trick on them. Will grabs his head and activates the consciousness block, knocking him unconscious immediately. Think of it as a mini version of Gojo's Infinite Void again. With this skill, Will can manipulate his opponent's life force and force him to pass out, but it is necessary that his grip is firm, or the movement is not. It will work properly. This is a technique she borrowed from Veronica during her training sessions. Lost in his thoughts, Will barely notices an attack heading his way. He dodges a bunch of short daggers and immediately remembers he's that same retarded idiot all over again. This time, the guy also brought his friends. Alpus thinks he's just trying to pass this exam like any other student. But he has the numerical advantage in a 3-on-1 situation here. Alpus activates the magic of creating knives. A footman covers his dredges with poison. The last footman uses shadow clone magic to multiply them even more. With these poison blades, even a single scratch could lead to the death of our boy. Blocking is totally out of the question. Dozens of blades are hurled at Will, chasing him. As they approach him, he considers the idea of curing the poison with recovery magic. Dealing with so many of these daggers, even with body enhancement, seems like a bummer. Cornered, he decides to make a completely new move. A sudden barricade appears in front of him, defending Will from the knives. Alpus is amazed to see the same rock golem, now serving a new master. The nifty trick of recovery magic is that it can take off on other living creatures. The rock golem here is able to move by itself, using the blood of the caster. Although he is incapable of complex patterns, the healer can easily manipulate him using his spell called Pseudo-Life Intuition. The golem charges at Esquindiana's trio of bones. First, our bad boy hits one guy's chest, then sits on top of another, probably causing him a permanent back pain. With those 2 finishes, you see Alpus panicking. He's fried because our guy attacks him like Minato Namikaze, grabbing his face and knocking him unconscious. The fight is over, so Will returns to stealth mode, with his golem advancing on the battlefield. Since his enhancement techniques limit him in hand-to-hand combat, his best option is to use a golem to compensate for an obvious weakness. You can also safely observe everyone in this way. Suddenly, a gigantic tornado catches his attention. It's as if a natural disaster has hit the forest. But no, the spiral of wind is literally a walking wave, one that our guy barely manages to escape from. The attack literally leaves a scar on the damn earth, annihilating the golem and the rest of the students, even knocking down all the trees in the remaining area. In the distance, Will sees a man. It's serious, the student prodigy, and I'm not kidding. The guy seems more of a protagonist than the one we have. His abilities are terrifying at first glance. Will wonders if he should use a move to fight him, but suddenly, the match is over. The director commemorates each candidate for their efforts, concluding the preliminary round. Only for remaining contestants will move on to the next stage. The real competition will take place in the arena. So until then, the president advises students to rest while he activates the transfer magic. While the transfer magic is underway, Sirius, the very serious man, looks seriously with a serious expression at our serious protagonist. Will has to find the wool to beat this guy in one day. They both disappear after that. Back at home, our nerd is busy doing homework, thinking about a strategy for the exam. Just outside his room, Alpus and his gang of losers have arrived once again. They're already pissed that they get 50 defeats every time they challenge the healer, but Alpus is a sore loser, an asshole. He cares about the pride of his noble family and wants to defend the honor of the Oman family against a simple healer. What worries him most is that his father will find out the whole situation. Still, his friends simply do not have the courage to accompany him. They abandon him and leave him to take care of his own mess. Alpus panics and finally boils over with anger, declaring that he has a way to get rid of the healer even without using magic. All while our guy is relaxing in his room. Suddenly, Will hears a knock at a strange hour. He gets up to open the door and already has a bad feeling. Obviously, it's Alpus at the door, who does his cheesy noble act and greets him warmly. Will is suspicious and does not believe his performance, but the golden noble is only here to talk. He expresses his pure hatred for healers, telling how he has done a lot of things to remove Will from the academy. Obviously, our guy turned the tables on him in every situation, and got through it time and time again. But now, Alpus has come with a personal message. His polite act fades as he orders the boy to drop out of the academy. Yeah, and that's as far as that shitty performance went. Will is starting to genuinely respect this man's level of hate. She just can't leave him alone for a moment. Alpi boasts of being a respectable member of a noble family, and does not like healers to be around. Even his older brother was weak as a healer. People would make fun of him, and he would just smile in front of them. Offensive magicians are proud, and normal healers are pathetically pitiful. This is the dark reality of most noble family teachings, a devious system. Alpus insists that Will leave through the power of persuasion, but Will genuinely won't say, "Yes, brother, thank you. Let me quit." So he rejects it. The nobleman comes prepared for that and emphasizes that he knows about Will's family. Thanks to his servants and connections in the outside world, the noble found out that Will has a sister. The two share a lovely bond. With a single order, his servants could easily eliminate the boy's sister if he wanted. Now the scene is getting much more intense. Will's usual aloof attitude disappears, and he goes straight for this guy's neck before slapping him to the ground. Then, he approaches from behind, pulling his arm to a position where it could easily break. Will reminds the dear noble that he has already made up his mind, and despite Alpus whining like a dog, his arm creaks, leaving him a whining mess. The noble is still bent on revenge, stating that the academy will not forgive him for breaking his arm. But here's the catch, bro. Forgot that Will is actually a healer. Everything is fine again, which also means that it can be happily broken again. It creaks a second time, leaving Alpus devastated with a roaring traumatic pain. Will heals him again, and this game continues. The nobleman pleads again, but breaks down anyway. The cycle of breaking up and healing continues, with Will playfully declaring that he is sticking firmly to his decisions. Threatening his sister is a boundary this loser should have never crossed. Crack, crack and crack, breaking his arm relentlessly until Alpus' spirit is tormented. Now he understands that this guy is not a healer but the Moderna Satan himself. Just like the reality slap the instructor received, it becomes painfully clear to the noble that she can't fuck with him again. That night, Will sends the noble back with warm greetings as if nothing had happened. Our guy does not even feel an ounce of regret. He even experiences joy before going to sleep. The next day, The main tournament is underway. The people in the arena are waiting for this fight with great interest. The four who made it past the first round are supposed to face each other. One of them turns out to be Erika herself, someone who exceeded Will's expectations. Apparently, he simply locked himself in walls of fire, intimidating everyone else so that they did not dare to approach. In short, this girl did not even move and won by default. But something doesn't add up. Will doesn't think that's the whole story. She asks him to be talking to her, but this man is not a Pegafanta if he plans to go with everything. Erika expresses that she will seek a much higher evaluation after beating him, and so their epic showdown begins. His first assault comes in the form of a scorching fireball. Will counters this fire attack by blocking it head-on. It's a simple fire spell, nothing special. Even his healing magic can easily regenerate any wound without problems. This simple move makes him underestimate Erika until he notices something very wrong. That same spell that hit him is more than just an attack. It's a trap. Erika continues with the same assault, throwing fireballs one after the other. But something special about its flames is that they do not go out at all. This woman learned Matarasu from Itachi and copied his whole style. Despite its low firepower, the duration is abnormal. Even if you maintain an active recovery, repeated damage is going to hurt. This remark also coincides with the last time, when he asked her for her flame to cheat in the basic offensive magic exam. This also shows why no contestant was able to get close to her using her walls of fire, because the flames literally wouldn't go out. Erika's flames are a representation of her stubbornness, and the sudden exposure of her skill attracts the attention of the crowd. To be honest, they only support her because they want to see our guy lose. An air of rice. He takes over her. The realization that he can pass both the preliminaries and even eliminate someone as powerful as Will. Formulating his counterattack, our guy casually puts out the flames after doubling his healing output. She repeats the same move again, but Will is ready this time. See, knowing that his flames will not go out, he intentionally grabs them, increasing his own offense. This is a great use of the battle IQ because the healer now has fire fists that help his offensive hits. Erika is about to be swept away when she suddenly throws up her hands and gives up. Luckily, she gets out unharmed, and the announcer declares our guy the winner of the match. Unfortunately, his evaluation stats won't change much, even after the match. The same crowd that supported Erika before now turns on her, calling her a fraud as offensive magician. The poor girl has been a support all her life and collapses under the weight of expectations, but her dear friend helps her up, emphasizing how well she fought. He even heals her wounds, winning her affection. That sweet little romance is demolished when Professor Bode takes the stage, saying it's the end of the road. Pointing his finger at the healer, he genuinely considers Will a scumbag. And he's really pissed that an offensive mage would give up on someone like that. His words scare poor Erika, leaving Will wondering if this is appropriate behavior from an instructor. The supervisor brags about his position, emphasizing that his role is to tell the truth as it is, something he finds encouraging. But while he is leaving, he confirms to our guy that there will be only one successful candidate in the tournament. That man in question approaches the healer. It's the Sirius. The two share a brief interaction. Sirius doesn't even bother to look at him while he's talking. He is a unique believer in the Force and agrees with Instructor Bode's worldview. The healer agrees with that, except the prodigy has one last thing to admit. He genuinely recognizes that the healer is strong, but at the same time, Sirius intends to prove that his own philosophy is correct by defeating him in his combat. Let's take a look at the prodigy's talents. Will remembers hearing his name in his past life, a guy with an insane level of offensive magic, someone whose victories are so resounding. Nothing and no one can stand in his way without being reduced to ashes. The final battle between Sirius and Will is about to begin. The way things look, our guy understands that he will only get the recognition of the Academy if he defeats the prodigy here. So his goal is to win. The final match starts with Sirius unleashing an overwhelming tornado from where he is. The attack takes up too much space, forcing Will to cautiously dodge it. Responding with his own boundary-breaking speed, Will propels himself at lightning speed, approaching the prodigy with everything he has. But before he can cut the distance, Sirius launches an all-out wind attack, keeping him away. This is a problem for the healer. You can't take a serious swipe at Sirius without getting up close. The two forces of nature continue their confrontation. Sirius and will face off as Sirius notices his speed. He raises his hand to attack and throws a gust of intense wind aimed at his opponent. Our boy realizes that the tornado from before was nothing compared to this wind that manages to wipe out the entire area. He is struggling to stay on his feet, but the time has come for him to make his debut. She puts her hand on the ground and starts to grow a gigantic tree, while Erica, in the crowd, marvels at the healing magic's ability, knowing that she has become stronger. A while ago, our guy showed this skill to teacher Veronica and explained that it infused vital energy into the plant, which helped it grow quickly. He had learned beforehand about attack magic, that he could manipulate plants, and decided to try with this skill. He wanted to adapt his tactics accordingly. Suddenly, he starts to fall to the ground, and Professor Veronica holds him so that he doesn't fall. He is surprised by the sudden depletion of mana, as the book did not clarify that it could be such an important technique. Veronica deciphers the mystery, explaining that destroying is easier than healing, because healing consumes much more mana than attack magic, and reproducing attack magic using healing magic is probably the most inefficient use of mana. Knowing the consequences of this ability, he plans to save it 4 times when it can be properly used. Coming back to the present, our guy uses this skill on the battlefield, since his attack magic doesn't have much efficiency. So he decides to rely on this move. When the tree finishes growing, Sirius manages to knock it down with a wind blade attack. This puzzles our guy, since Sirius magic consists of tornadoes that can swallow enemies, and storms that can wipe out a wide area. Its wind blades are designed for solid objects, while the tornado takes care of anyone who approaches it, focusing around it. Will realizes that Sirius is called the best candidate for a reason, but he too has aspired to become stronger using this magic, and jumps in Sirius' direction. Instantly, the opponent forms a tornado around him, and belittles him, saying that he cannot reach him, no matter what he does. And he certainly wasn't wrong. As soon as our boy hits the tornado, he is thrown into the air. Sirius smiles, but suddenly realizes that something is very wrong. He looks at his shoulder and sees that it is pierced by a piece of wood. The confusion is evident on his face as he demands an explanation. Will confidently reveals his tactics. He knew that Sirius couldn't protect the ground under his feet, so the underground plant sent its roots in all directions. And that's how he ended up with a stabbed shoulder. The protagonist wonders if he is worried about Professor Bode, as their personalities are very different, while Sirius moans in pain. Sirius clarifies that the teacher instructs him because he is strong. Our guy throws more questions at her, knowing that she is from a well-known family. Sirius reveals the truth about his family. Magical ability matters above all else. The strongest person becomes the head of the family. No other factor like gender or age matters. This has created enemies within the family, all fighting for power, and his own father refuses to teach him. For Sirius, listening to the teacher is the only way to truly gain power and strength. Then he gathers all his magical energy once again, which surprises the whole crowd, including our protagonist. A dragon is formed from the magic power, and Sirius declares that they will solve it now. The dragon points at our boy, making him see that this is not a child's game. A while back, Will used to think that wizards with offensive magic had it easier, which made him want to try harder. But he was wrong all along. He realized that talent is not the only thing that determines superiority. Things like lineage, talent, and past play their part. All this leads him to declare to Sirius that he wants to beat him in this fight. Sirius is taken aback by the sudden announcement. He throws his hand to the ground, getting ready to use his special seed, and starts to grow a tree once again, called Yggdrasil. The plant grows quickly, consuming much more mana than the other plants. However, the advantage is that it will continue to grow as long as our guy keeps pouring mana into it. Sirius attacks with a wind blade, which manages to cut the tree in half again, sending it flying through the sky. But when he looks up, the one flying branch has turned into a huge tree and is coming straight at him. Meanwhile, Will assumes that because Sirius magic is already being used to keep the wind dragon, he won't have enough time to defend himself. The assumption turns out to be true, and the tree crashes into Sirius. Looking up, she sees Will standing with a knife pointed at him. Reflecting, he realizes that he has lost. Will is announced as the winner. The crowd cheers, as they did not expect Sirius to lose, and they talk about the strength that the protagonist possesses. Then the hero offers his hand to help Sirius get up, praising his strength, but Sirius sounds defeated. Our guy tries to calm him down, admitting that it was a good match. Suddenly, Professor Bode enters, clearly disappointed with Sirius. Sirius, with his strength, he kicks the tree off him and lifts him up by the waist. He takes him away, furious that Sirius has failed him, declaring that his training will start all over again from scratch. The entire crowd falls silent, knowing how absolutely jarring this sounds. Bode turns to the crowd, shouting that this was for everyone. Enraged, he cannot believe that a simple healer has obtained the first place. Will realizes that Bode's tantrum is getting out of hand. He starts defending Sirius, saying that his strength was pretty good, and that losing doesn't mean he's weak in any way. When he is about to defend his opponent more, Bode angrily shuts him up. Then Bode starts walking towards our guy, mocking his statements in defense of Sirius. He throws Sirius to the side, and calls our guy stupid, saying that in a combat, only strength can give optimal results. Consumed by his emotions, he declares that losing turns you into discarded trash. Will is disturbed that Bode speaks so harshly about his own disciple. He begins to argue that being a healer doesn't give Bode the right to say whatever he wants. Bode's eyes burn with fury as he tries to demoralize our guy, saying that he will soon be thrown to the side of the weak, because there is little value in being a healer. In addition, she teases him by pointing out the drastic depletion of his mana levels, which surprises our guy. Bode adds that the weak are parasites that make the strongest people die. Being called a deadlift makes our guy have a flashback to his past, where Bode was abusing him for not being strong enough. Even then, he tried to defend himself, insisting that healers support others with their magic. Screaming, he tried to prove that the world needs healers to maintain balance, or else humanity will perish. Bode lets him go and remembers how his disciple once held onto the front to buy time for the rearguard to escape, only to be annihilated by weak monsters at the point of escape. His disciple died with nowhere to go, and Bode watched helplessly, knowing that he could not heal him. He clenches his fist and yells that Sirius shouldn't die for crap like that. From a practical point of view, the professor is not entirely wrong. If you are weak, in the end, you will die no matter what, and people must train to survive. Still, there will come a time when the monsters will become more violent. And when that happens, the strong cannot afford to be selfish. For moments like that, people without talent must also know how to fight. Returning to the present, our boy challenges the teacher to a duel, hoping that he will recognize it. Bode scoffs and accepts the challenge, confident that there is no way a simple healer can beat him. Hearing this, the referee panics and asks if Bode is serious about the challenge. Bode, proud, twists the rules as he pleases. With no other option, the referee takes Sirius away. A special match is announced, Will versus Bode, and moments later, the match begins. Bode cracks his fingers, presuming that it will prove how weak our guy really is. With the amount of mana left, we is worried about facing the strongest opponent it has had in a long time. Start planning carefully, because this is not a normal grief. Just as he's about to start, Bode yells at him how slow our guy is and unleashes his attack. The spark of magic is enough to light up the whole floor. He then brags about teaching him the 3 reasons he is destined to win. A large amount of mana radiates, while giving the first reason, advantage and distance to suppress the enemy. The second reason is speed, which prevents them from acting. The third reason is the power to wipe them out in one fell swoop. When Bode is about to continue, he teases by saying that the protagonist might not be able to hear him right now. Our guy gets up once again, asking where is the power that just one hit. Despite being visibly injured, our boy is still standing, knowing that the professor possesses a unique lightning magic. To save yourself from electrical damage, you must somehow avoid a direct blow to the inside of your body. He is aware that his abilities will be useless if his brain or heart is hit, as his healing magic will not be fast enough. For that specific reason, he created a blood circuit that could easily conduct electricity. He put his knife through his hand, so when the electricity hits the blade, it passes through his arm and legs, and is transmitted to the ground, minimizing the damage he receives. Still, withstanding electrical attacks is extremely difficult. Now it's time for our guy to launch a counterattack. She belittles him, saying that she feels sorry for him, knowing that he barely managed to withstand the attack. Will then begins to improve his body physically through magic, but suddenly realizes that he cannot infuse strength into his body. Bode reveals that his violet ray paralyzes his victim, leaving her unable to move. Will realizes that he could be in serious trouble, and raises his hand again as another attack approaches him. Selfishly, Bode wants to keep using the mana he has left to see how many hits the protagonist can take. Bode launches his attack, leaving the crowd in shock as our boy continues to endure it, knowing that the professor really has a unique, strong and impeccable magic, which feeds his arrogance. But the protagonist refuses to give up. He decides that he will win, putting every bit of his remaining mana and stamina into manipulation. He hits the ground with his hand, and immediately starts to grow a water treasure tree. This tree has the ability to absorb large amounts of water from the ground and store it, so if it is used as a barrier, electricity will be easily dispersed. However, fate has other plans. Bode manages to bring down the tree with his electric attack, leaving the crowd in shock. Our guy is speechless as Bode starts walking towards him, believing that the protagonist has nothing left. But when Bode looks at the fallen tree, he sees that the mushrooms are starting to grow quickly, which really surprises him. Our guy feels a quiet sense of relief. His technique worked, as mushrooms grow quickly after a lightning strike. When a forest is turned into a wasteland by lightning, an opportunity is created to grow without enemies, and mushrooms are among the first to appear. But that's not the only advantage they bring. They also cause paralysis in the body, and Bode experiences it firsthand. He panics, and our guide takes advantage of the opportunity. Knowing that the advantageous distance between him and his opponent has finally disappeared, he charges his fist and throws it directly at Bode, but Bode manages to dodge it and attacks our guy directly in the stomach. He reveals that he is also skilled in hand-to-hand combat, and that his unique magic allows him to manipulate electricity even more. He claims that if he bolsters his body with electricity to speed up his movements, that paralyzing trick would be nothing in comparison. On the floor, clutching his chest, Will is unable to accept that he might not be able to win. Proudly, Bode holds up his fist, declaring himself the victor of the duel. But before he can strike the blow, someone stops him. When he turns around, he sees Professor Veronica with her sword drawn. He tries to get her off his back, saying she shouldn't get in the way being a newbie. Our boy trembles, but a ray of hope arises when he sees Veronica. She argues that the result of the combat is clear, and that continuing to hit the boy would only cause unnecessary pain. Bode tries to justify himself, claiming that Will is a healer and can simply heal himself. Veronica defends our boy, stating that he has no magic power left since he poured everything into the duels he just fought. Angry, Bode tries to attack again, thinking that Veronica simply lacks the courage to go all the way. Veronica immediately charges her sword, and the two jump towards each other to attack. Suddenly, the director appears, putting an end to the dispute. He gets between them, preventing Bode from moving forward, and apologizes to Veronica for not having explained the situation sooner. He announces the end of the selection exam and orders everyone to leave the premises. As the students begin to disperse, our guy tries to heal himself, but fails, having completely run out of mana. Veronica lifts Will into her arms, assuring him that he did well. He urges him to rest and not to push his limits, but these guarantees are not enough for him. The next day, he walks around the school thinking about the power difference. It still puzzles him how humanity could have ceased to exist, even with such strong people around. So he resolves to gain more and more strength. Will enters the room, and the director is glad to see him, noticing that his wounds have healed considerably. Our guy explains that once his mana returned, The healing was almost instantaneous. The director assumes that Will have no problems with training in the field, which surprises the protagonist. Then he continues, explaining that, because Will got the first place in the selection, he passed. Along with him, Sirius and Erica have also approved. Will demands an explanation, as Bode had previously stated that everyone had failed. The principal explains that this happens every year to make students believe that they are in a crisis, bringing out their seriousness. Although some are eventually approved. As field training carries great danger, Bode had to act as a teacher, and although it was hard, it fulfilled its purpose. In his previous life, Bode was constantly on the front lines for humanity, and was one of the heroes who tried to save humanity from extinction. The principal then urges the protagonist to form a group with students from other schools as an attacker, so that he can accept real requests for monster subjugation. This makes Will realize that this will be the first time he will face monsters. The same monsters that were the direct cause of humanity's extinction in his past life. Creatures that possess magical power are known as monsters, but not all monsters are inherently a threat to humanity. Some may attack humans, but often only for their own survival. If their ecological behavior had been properly studied, they could have been used as neighboring species, instead of being treated as enemies. However, 2 years from now, the world is destined to change under the influence of the Red Moon. The monsters exposed to the Red Moon will become ferocious, and different species of super monsters will begin to unite, with a single goal, to annihilate humanity completely. Then, 2 years after that catastrophe, the Demon King himself will descend upon the world. This sequence of events will put humanity at a complete disadvantage, causing the collapse of nations and the death of countless people. Attack mages will be needed on the battlefield, but since the situation will be uncontrollable, they will continue to lose their lives next to the knights. Even the healing mages will be massacred once the front falls, leaving no support for the wounded. By the time the protagonist dies in his previous life, there are barely any humans left capable of fighting. If people continue to live without changing anything, humanity will no longer be able to survive. He cannot allow such a tragedy to happen again. He vows to strengthen himself beyond anyone in his previous life, in order to be able to resist the great invasion of monsters. More than that, he wants to discover the true cause behind the Red Moon that drove the monsters to madness. Hoping to eliminate the source of the calamity itself, the director notices the determination reflected in his eyes and is deeply impressed. He finds Will's behavior promising and wonders if the teachers are being cautious enough about the upcoming field training. The director assures him that the appropriate measures have been taken, but makes it clear that he wants to especially encourage Will's growth. Later, while off campus with Veronica, Bode approaches the protagonist. When Will tries to show that he understands the reason for Bode's behavior, Bode yells at him again and leaves. Still, before he leaves, he tells Will to give his best during training. Then, just as she turns around, she quietly thanks him for treating Sirius. Sirius, who had been standing behind him, also steps forward and thanks Will. He says he can now work on his weaknesses and become stronger than ever. As long as he survives, he knows that he will finally be able to take revenge, and this time, he will not vanish into thin air. The protagonist urges him to become even stronger, and the two clench their fists in silent agreement. For Will, it's an advantage that more skilled attack wizards start to appear, as they will be invaluable allies in the upcoming battles against the monsters soon after they leave in a carriage. After a while, they are informed that the Dunkel Forest is approaching, and that the details of the training will be reviewed shortly. Veronica explains that they will be fighting goblins as part of a requested mission inside the Dunkel Forest. She proceeds to mentor 3 Swart students, Eilich and Hilburn. He then turns to Will, informing him that he will form a team of 4 supported by a teacher from one of the academies. Erica asks if the team members have already been decided, and Veronica assures her that she will be on the same team as her. Although Erica is intimidated by Veronica, she considers it much better than being paired with a complete stranger. After a while, they are informed that they have arrived. Getting out of the carriage, Veronica realizes that Gilbert's students have already arrived in the area. The protagonist reflects that in his previous life, he did not have many acquaintances or connections. Suddenly, a girl pounces on Will and hugs him tightly, exclaiming that she was dying to meet him. The protagonist panics, completely confused about who she could be. She is quickly introduced as Marie Goldgrun, the principal of Swartz Academy, and the granddaughter of Elmoran Goldgrun. The hero is completely stunned by her presentation, as he vividly remembers her from his past life. He never expected to meet the girl he once tried at the director's house, let alone here in the forest. Seeing her again makes him wonder how she has been, and she quickly assures him that she has been very well. Almost immediately, she starts apologizing, saying that she could never thank him properly back then. He casually downplays her importance, telling her it was nothing, but she insists that she wants to return the favor by doing something for him. Then she explains that she didn't have any talent for magic, so instead she enrolled in the Gilbert Academy and dedicated herself to learning the art of the sword. Thanks to her relentless effort, she ended up becoming the highest-ranked student in the Academy's selection exam. She laughs foolishly as she notices how impressed the protagonist looks. He is genuinely touched by her achievement, because just a few months ago she was bedridden, and yet, in such a short time, she managed to reach the top. Taking his hand, he tells him that they have been put on the same team for their respective talents, and that he will do everything possible to prove their usefulness to him. At that moment, she finally realizes what the director really meant when he talked about taking care of her. Before he can think about it anymore, she suddenly drags him to greet the students who have just arrived from Ilek. Watching from the side, Veronica and Erica are surprised at how cheerful and friendly the two seem together. Outside Ilek's carriage, Marie asks if Yulin and Turf are inside. Yulin soon begins to leave, calmly saying that there is no need to hurry. He cheerfully greets everyone, revealing that he is the teacher assigned to their team. Olin is a professor at Ilek Academy, and in Will's previous life, Olin had been the greatest healing magician of his era. Realizing that he is now on the same team as him fills Will with real happiness. After that, Turf also gets out of the carriage, and Marie introduces herself to him. However, Turf freezes up when he notices that the two are holding hands. Naturally, he asks to be introduced to the protagonist. Will introduces himself, and Turf quickly assumes he must be an attack mage. Yulin then tells the students that they are free to do whatever they want, and that he will simply keep an eye on them. This carefree attitude surprises all students. Will approaches Yulin and asks if he can call him master. Yulin asks why, and Will explains that he uses healing magic himself, but he has never had a proper teacher to help him practice and perfect it. He then asks if Olin would be willing to teach him. Olin says that she has already heard about Will and immediately agrees to teach him some healing magic. Marie runs after them, insisting that she too should be allowed to call Olin master if Will is going to do it. From the side, Veronica observes how well the team seems to be getting along. Later, when the subjugation mission is assigned, each team is instructed to operate using a hut as a base. The area where goblins have been reported is located deep in the forest, so Olin, Marie and Will decide to head there immediately. Meanwhile, Asher, the healing magician, is ordered to stay at the base, avoiding the battlefront according to traditional protocol. As they walk towards the goblin spawn area, Marie asks if Will is really only going to act as a healing mage on the battlefront. He responds calmly, telling her not to worry about him. He explains that he will instead act as the group's supervisor, allowing them to fight freely, while he keeps a close eye on everything. Taking his words seriously, the two accept that the supervisor does not have strict rules. They immediately start hunting the goblins. In a single, swift move, Maria annihilates a large group of goblins at once. The protagonist can hardly believe what he is seeing, remembering that just a few months ago, she was completely bedridden.